Welcome to Breakfast with Bronsen. Today's episode is with my friend Janelle. Say hi, Janelle.
Hi.
So today we're talking about what it's like to be a missionary. Maybe you've thought about you want to be a missionary. Maybe you want to go abroad. Maybe you want to be a missionary in your own local neighborhood. Janelle is a great guest to give you great insights on this, and we're going to talk from our own experience, right? And then just hopefully at the end of this video, you will have a better understanding of what it's really like to be a missionary, and hopefully you can bypass some of the bumps in the road that we experienced, and just all to the glory of God, right? So Janelle, take it away.
All right. So, quite a few years ago, I chose to be a missionary. I was called by God to be one. It was a very quick process for me. I didn't know that I wanted to be a missionary. I was kind of looking into the Peace Corps, and then had some life-altering situations come up, and I just had this extreme heavy presence on me of the Lord saying, no, you're going to the mission field, this is what you're going to be doing. And within about the matter of a month or so, with tons of other things going on within that month, I was getting on an airplane to a third world country.
Let's talk about that for a second. Maybe some people out there, they've never been on an airplane, they don't have a passport. Maybe they are scared to go abroad, you know? I mean, nowadays with all these wars going on, rumors of wars, it's not really as maybe acceptable or smiled upon as when we did it back in, a couple of years ago. So I don't know. I really want to just focus on, for you, Janelle, what do you think are some pitfalls that you think that they can watch out for in their mission field when they go on their mission?
Well, I know that every mission field is very different. And what we bring to the mission field has a lot to do with it. And I think having a good dream team is really important. I think knowing what you're going to be doing when you go there, how you're going to be executing it, maybe looking at what people have done in the past and haven't done in the past. I also think that with my organization, we believe that living with the people was an extremely important thing. It taught me my language. So when I arrived in my third world country, I went to a site that was not quite developed, so I had no roof on my house, which was beautiful. I could see all the stars, and wow, right. Talk about some prayers.
There's always the upside, right?
Yeah, and the toilet was outside, which was fine. But I think when I got there, I was living with Tanzanians. I served in Tanzania. I lived with Tanzanians the way Tanzanians lived. And that means that I learned how to eat their food, which is delicious, and I gained 40 pounds, so I loved it.
I can relate with that, for sure.
You ate with them. That's how you learn the real language of the culture. You learn the tribal language. All those nuances, like those hidden things that maybe we take for granted, like in our culture, looking somebody in the eye when you're talking to them, or all those little, what are these called?
Nuances, cultural aspects.
Yeah. That you don't necessarily get taught in a classroom. I do think having the language is helpful, and that you do need to learn it. But being
do you think they need to learn it before they go, or should they just be open to learn it whenever it presents itself?
So I think that somebody coming into the culture, knowing the language, makes them feel like they can say and do anything in our natural language. And so we haven't learned what would be appropriate in their language for us to say. And I think you can ruin a lot of relationships, or a lot of really hurt sayings, because you don't know the meaning or how that's interacted. You don't understand the nuances. I would recommend going and being humble, right? That's what we as missionaries are supposed to be doing. Here is their country, their world, their ideas, their mindset, and we're coming in and we're saying, oh, we know all this and you have to do it like us. That's ridiculous. You wouldn't want somebody coming in and telling you that in your own house, your apartment, in your own, just if you're at the park. You don't want nobody telling you how to play at the park.
That's true.
So I think it would be going and being humble for a few months maybe, and getting involved in the community, not like having a job there, having something that makes you part of the community, and then taking that step back a month or two later, going to either language school. I mean, what a great job for somebody in school to be able to help teach you language. Now, they're not trained, and so you're going to have to be really gracious with how they may teach, because all of our teaching styles are different and our learning styles are different, and they don't understand how to teach the way that we need to be taught. So you'll have to work with that. But there's no reason that you can't get a group of people who want to learn the language, and then using the resources available to you within your community to be able to do it. And I think it's also a big eye-opener if we are worried about language. Why not you can see how they were taught by them teaching you.
Yeah.
And like I said, the resources. Well, how are they supposed to learn a second or third language when we can't learn a second or third language because there's no resources in the city,
right,
or where we're at in the village to learn?
I mean, you were using with correct me if I'm wrong, the Tanzanian language is Swahili, right? Sorry. Swahili. When I went to Thailand for 5 years, I literally knew Sawadee Khap, which is just hello. And so I got off the plane knowing one word, and I left after 5 years knowing a lot more than one word. And even though Thai wasn't my first foreign language, was Swahili your first foreign language?
No.
So even though it wasn't our first foreign language, I think you would agree in that even though I learned German and Spanish and French before, and obviously English before going to Thailand, I realized after the 5 years that it wasn't really I was learning the language. It was more like the community was giving me the language. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And so like the level to which you get with the language really depends on the community and your friends. So if you go in like, I have to learn, more just be like, I'm ready to accept the language.
Well, and can I say one more thing, especially if we're going to be missionaries? We say a smile is worth 1,000 words. Like, right. If you're being hard on yourself, like I could never learn a second language. It's so difficult just to learn, a different language here in my own city where people are walking around and I can't right. communicate. People should recognize the willingness in you and the heart of the matter. A lot of big corporations now, we say we hire for heart, not for skill type thing. And that's very true. Like, and you have to think about way back in the day, is sometimes missionaries went and they didn't know the language, and you had to work through it. And
now we have our phones too.
Yeah,
like we're filming on this phone. I mean, back when we didn't have AI.
No,
we didn't even have Google Translate. Thank you. That dates us a little bit, but like,
what a great tool that can be used for
100%. So definitely take your phone, but try not to always be on your phone. Right? Still live in the presence and connect with everyone. But I want to talk a little bit more about like some things that maybe the institution or church won't tell. Like you mentioned Peace Corps. Definitely that there's like maybe your local church. Maybe there's another institution that you want to go through. I went directly to the school that I taught at in Thailand. I didn't go through a church or anything here, but it was connected to my church. So I went through a little bit differently than you did, because you went through a local American church, correct?
I went through a non-existent American church.
Got it.
That was for this organization, and then I had to raise support.
Yeah.
And so my church did support me in going over there, which I'm really, really thankful for. It's really nice to know that there's that accountability. And one thing I really love about my church is they're very missionary minded. They have... Yeah,
they are. I remember.
They're like over 500 missionaries, and it's not even a mega church. But what that church did for me, so I was about 8 years into my service before they picked me up. I had gone through other churches and asked, and so I struggled to meet how much I had to make every month to be allowed to give free volunteer services.
Do you think that now with, let's say, crowdfunding or with the phone, with internet, how it's become so advanced, it would be easier to have raised the amount of money that you needed or for the funds? Because I feel like it would 100% be, because you wouldn't have to necessarily reach directly out to your known people back in the States or who you knew, but it could just be like, hey, this is my story, using social media as a way to share the little things about what you're doing going on, and then connect it to GoFundMe or whatever, Patreon, that will help you. I feel like nowadays
I would think nowadays
so
it'd be
better.
a lot easier. I think in the past you had to go from church to church and try to get in and say, this is why you should support me. And there was very few churches that would support you. And definitely they're not going to give you 10 minutes at the pulpit to tell their whole congregation, because that's money that could be going to their congregation to be given to you.
Yeah.
And I don't fault them for that. They have God's blessing in their hand, and where he's telling that church to go may not be to support me, which is fine. But it was a lot of mental anguish from the leaders of my organization that I wasn't bringing in a certain amount. And I think that I was treated very differently because I didn't have that money, but I did have the heart, and I was there. And when I have to pull out my own money to be able to pay for an airplane ride back home if my dad's sick, that's my own money, which is fine. I'm happy to do that because it needed to be done. But to be told like I can't go home because I don't have the funds, I don't think that's an appropriate response when I've been serving them with this organization for 8 years.
I'm sorry that really happened to you. There are things that happen in the mission field that I can't say.
Well, I would just like the mission field to be a little bit accountable, right? Like these are volunteers. We have specific rules for volunteers here in the States.
100%.
How many hours they can work, and what there are still allotted basic living rights. And I would hope that our missionaries and the organizations that are using money from people would be using it to help people do the work, basically. If we're really the feet and the legs, like, let's not cut off the feet and the legs. So I would like that. And I think there was one organization that supported me, and once a month I had to fill out like 6 questions of what my ministry was that month, and they're just very basic questions, and I was literally graded on my responses as if I would get my funds. So it was very weird, and that seems like an odd thing going about it. So I just think that churches need to hold their missionaries accountable for actually producing and doing work, if that's what they're saying they're going to be doing there.
Oh yeah, 100%. I do want, one of the reasons why I made Breakfast with Bronsen is because I really believe that there's a connection between faith, health, and success. And I always have experts on that are in one of the categories or a related category. And I really want to make sure that my viewer understands that when you have faith in God, that's amazing. Do everything, be around the right people, and be in the great institutions that support and further and allow you to flourish and grow your faith in God. Sometimes people aren't really compatible for that for you, and you need to know when to distance yourself from those people, places, or things. Do you see in the mission field, let's say, a way that we can help the viewer to really understand the importance of their personal faith, maybe, and how it grew? Because I know that you and I both saw the underside or underbelly side of the mission field of the church. And I always want to make sure that my viewer doesn't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah,
and even though you might not, even you might have a bad taste in your mouth about what happened or whatever, or you go through trials, never give up your faith with God. I truly believe, and always just take one more step. And sometimes that might be like, if an institution that you're in is not really supportive of you, maybe you do have to distance yourself from that institution, but don't distance yourself from God. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think going to the mission field will completely bring the Bible alive to you in ways that you would never experience. We're very lucky that we have the opportunity that we can go on Saturdays or Sundays or Wednesdays or whatever day is your holy day, that you go to church and you get fed. When you are by yourself, like many, many people in the Bible were, where they were completely reliant on God for every basic thing. And maybe, there's nights of me like in my little sheet reading by candlelight the Bible and just crying because it's like I didn't know my faith was like that. Do you know what I mean? Being able to be, just blessed and thank goodness there's no rain today. but being able to understand the Bible and see and have God actually, you can feel his presence and speak to you. It's a totally different experience that if you have that here in the States, it's wonderful. You're lucky. We just get so caught up. But you do need to have faith, and you need to be led, and you need to be so willing to understand what it is to go through pain and hardships, because the beauty when you come out is beautiful. And I know there's like that silly saying, like, you don't get flowers without manure or something like that.
That's true.
It's kind of translated weird, but it's true. And your faith will grow on the mission field. If you are relying on him, it will grow here if you're relying on him. But you should have a little bit of a foundation, because your whole faith will get rocked all the way.
So now you were out there for 7 years total or 9 years total?
Almost 10, yeah. So I think it was like 9, just under 9.
Almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend someone take that much time? I mean, some people go out for like a summer vacation. Yeah. Would you recommend the whole decade of your life?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with what you're being called to do. If you feel that you can make a huge impact in a summer or 6 months or a year, remember, this is going to the mission field isn't for you to take a leap year. It's for work to be done, and I keep saying work, but it's for ministry to be done. And if you feel like, okay, I have this short thing, I just want to like minister to kids, all the kids come over, we do some fun games, and then we send them off to live their life, and that 6 months changed their life. If that's what you're being called by God to do, that's great. If you're being called to say, no, I'm a plant here and I want to see people grow, and it's going to take years and years to see those transitions, that's between you and God, and you need to be open to what he wants you to say. I keep saying that, but it's true. You have to be understanding of it. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes for me, I felt like I wasn't giving up a ton of stuff to stay an extra year, to be able to see one of my students graduate, or for me to finish opening a primary school, or for me, for teach at the college or what have you. I saw it as new opportunities to see the people that I had originally ministered within those 6 months or whatever to really grow and blossom and see their faith take on. When your students are becoming pastors and and they themselves claiming to be missionaries and going to other sections of the country to tell the gospel, that's awesome. That's wonderful. So I think that throughout the Bible, I think you see short interactions, even with Jesus, of ministry, and you see the long term, right? That's why he had disciples. That was a long term. So I think 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
I would say maybe a few years at most, and then definitely think about yourself and your ministry and the families at home. The work there is important. However, it's not important that you don't come home for 6 months or for 6 years. It's not important that you spend your entire life there and you cut off America or the people who are helping you. Right. You need to keep those relationships. And I can say from my side, like, I thought that, ministering was so important or whatever, that I missed out on weddings and funerals, and for me, I missed out on dating, which is fine. At the time, I didn't think that was important, but looking back, when I returned back to the States, I didn't have a core support group.
Let's talk about that. Can we talk? Because it's called re-entry. You can Google it. When you come back, whether you were living abroad, working abroad, studying abroad, or being a missionary abroad, when you come back in, it's called re-entry. Just like a plane when it re-entries, or like when Elon Musk's rocket re-entries back in.
So awesome. So it's amazing.
Yeah, just like, I think just like the rockets now can like self-land or whatever, I think now with technology, you guys can ease your re-entry back into your regular life. But let's talk about that. So when you come back, like, you're gonna not be in contact with some people. That some people will have moved on. You will have changed. They will have changed. The country will have changed. I mean, when I came back, I was like, "Who's Katy Perry?" Like, sorry, Katie, but like I had no idea. I had no idea. Like, I was completely removed. And even though, we had YouTube and everything like that, but I literally was like, "Who's Katy Perry? What's the roar?" Like,
Well, and you probably weren't on the mission field looking that up. Like, my phone didn't have access to YouTube or anything, so I didn't know any of that. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I probably get carried away.
Yeah, I know. I had no idea. Really, Katy Perry. Sorry about that. But come on, we can talk. Okay. But yeah, so when you come back into re-entry, what are some things that you wish you would have had that would have been like absolutely amazing?
So I was really fortunate that my church provided therapy.
Oh, that's nice.
But that was 3 months after I had been back. So those first few months, you need time to get back to being your home country. Don't go to grocery stores. That's really overwhelming. And everyone looks at you very weird.
A lot of people around, big crowds. Maybe avoid
big
for
crowds,
the first couple weeks.
So many choices.
Yeah.
That, what a blessing. But I think the therapy was helpful, but trying to keep with some of your basic traditions. Like, if you were in your country and it was like, probably for you, food was maybe a big gathering of people.
Yeah.
And so stick with that. At 6:00, you make a big meal, and anyone who wants to come, great. And if not, then that's okay. You still have that meal. You still took that time before transitioning over. So it's just basically finding little things in your life that kept with it. Keep your devotionals the same time. Keep it on that same track of devotionals. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm in America, my devotion's totally different." Stick with that. I was trying to I reconnected with a lot of friends, which was really nice.
Speaking about friends and devotionals, I want to plug right now Brenda Walsh, Strength for Today. Okay, it's 2-minute every day, and I'll definitely have her on in the future. But it's 1-minute devotions. If you read a little bit slower like me, I like to take my time. Devotions to encourage, inspire, and spiritually change your life. Strength for Today by Brenda Walsh, and it's by date, right? So each day is just a page. Isn't that cool?
That's beautiful.
And literally, like, you'll open it up to like whatever you're struggling with, and it'll speak directly to exactly whatever I need. And it's just so crazy. I've been using it for years, and I get a lot of my friends this, and so Brenda Walsh, thank you so much for creating this. You can look at brendawalsh.com and to find more. And she'll be on in a later episode. Okay, so thanks for that little blurb, a little outing. So
I don't know, what was difficult for you coming back in? What did you need?
I think that God does really do provide for everything. I won't say the name of the place that I worked at or the church through which I went. If you know, you know. But basically, when you come back into America, having finances would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So I really think that, like, for example, like, we had one that I put into as I was working every month, and it was like a retirement, but it was really just more like a long-term savings plan. And so, like, I put into, and I had like $8,000. I know it's not a lot, but when you're working in a third world country and over 5 years, you can save up. And I got my master's degree out there too, so I'd pay for that, and I'd pay for, like, I was very blessed, but like that $8,000, like, I put it in and I never got it. And that's one thing that why I really wanted to have Janelle on, because even though we were serving in completely different places, I was in Asia, she was in Africa, but we knew each other before we went, and we both had like really traveled abroad a lot and lived abroad, and so like when we met, I remember that's what really like made us really fast friends, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We met in the library, and I was like, wait, you've been to all those places too? Me too. But so I think having that like nest egg would have been really helpful.
I agree. My nest egg was also not provided. And so that's something definitely to be wary of.
Right.
Um,
Get everything in writing. But even that, like I saw how in the last 10 years since I got back, I saw that like how God really did just open up. Like even though that one institution promised that I would get that, and I went through that one institution, God opened up a whole nother institution that was just like opportunity, work, provide everything. And so I truly believe if we focus on, no, you're supposed to give me that, God, you're supposed to give me that, and then if we don't just like leave it up to God, then it'll be like very frustrating and stuff. Yeah. But at the same time, if you can have something that you can come home to, that would be really good.
Well, I think definitely having somebody to talk to and understand, like, prices are very different. Yeah. And so there's this.
How much was your rent? Mine was $150 for a penthouse. And I had a huge balcony, and it was in downtown Bangkok.
You're very blessed. But I think the concept of like, you know, I'm coming from making less than $200 a month and being able to feed, you know, 8 kids and everyone in my household and a little bit more. And then I'm going and I see that toothpaste is $3. I freak out that I can't buy toothpaste. I'm not living under the standards of Africa anymore, but I have that weird, crazy guilt. I can't buy a sweater for $20 because I'm cold. I would rather be cold than to spend that amount.
Can we talk about that though? I mean, can we talk, you guys? Like, we're getting into it now, you know, 26 minutes in, but we're getting into it. So like that guilt that comes with it, because like, if you know, like for $1, you can get a pad thai, like, which is delicious Thai food, right? A dish of that on the streets in Thailand. I don't know about now. Maybe it's gone up a little bit. Probably not. If you know you can get that, and then someone goes, oh, hey, let's go watch a movie, and it's like $13. You're thinking like, I could have 8 for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And like and when you've seen that level, so like, how have you, we've both been back for a while now. How have you overcome that or learned from that? The guilt that comes back from the prices and being able to spend, or do you not spend?
I don't spend, or I try not to. I don't know if I've overcome. I'm not going to say that I'm one of the people who will eat everything on the plate, because I know that there's starving children in some village, but I do. I have that waste concept, and I haven't been able to completely break it. I will say that for me personally, I have learned that being in the moment, and that sometimes that stinginess isn't what God would want for me. So, you know, if we're sitting down and we're having a meal, well, what does that bring to Christ, right? It's 2 people being fellowship. That price that we're paying for that coffee or whatever isn't,
or cake, delicious cake.
Or cake. It's the environment. It's the purpose of that, right? Mm-hmm. So the money is just a tool.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I've learned, and it's amazing how many times I don't have the money because it's not what God really wanted me to do.
Right. I think you brought up a great point of that. It's the value of what you're spending on, you know. Mm-hmm. You could, if you need it, then definitely do it. But it does take a little bit. It's the shock. It's a shock. It's a price tag shock, you know. You're like, oh my gosh, I could have got, like paying like $2,000 in rent when it was like $150 a month, you know, is like a little bit shocker. But
well, as you know, like I was buying luggage yesterday for my small trip, and I sent out a questionnaire, which luggage should I get? And literally people who have been to a different country, all of their responses was, get this one, it's cheaper. Yeah. So it was like $4 cheaper. That's it.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I probably didn't like it as much, but that was the response. And so I don't know if it's ever really bred out of you, but just be conscious of that concept, that it may change how you view money.
And also, like, if you're going without, it's not make sure it's not a lose-lose situation, you know, just because Yeah, I mean that's something that definitely is a shocker, and I definitely deal with to today. Um, I want to talk about the when you get back in, and now how many years has it been since you've been back?
I'm about almost 6. I've been back for 5, so yeah.
Okay, so
Almost
like
6.
I've been up for 10 years. Like, how have you seen that your connections or what you learned over there, or with the people like now? Fast forward now that you're back in the States, how have you been able to stay in contact, or if you've not been able to stay in contact? And
So I've been able to stay in some contact. The organization, I had a falling out. So and the church stepped in and said we're no longer asked the organization not to contact me, and vice versa, which I appreciate. It is hard staying in contact. I was there for many years, and my heart and soul was in there.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a 9 to 5 job. My heart was with those. I had kids living with me in my house, and I didn't get to say goodbye to them or anything. And so it just made me look bad, which is really hurtful. So the few people that I have been able to stay in contact with, there's been a few students who have always stayed with me, reached out to me, and then there's other expats that were close by. I think it's important to see what the Lord is doing with the work that you started. We don't always get the ability to see the fruit of our works, and I think that's a hard thing for me, but I know what they could be doing, and I'm sure that they've excelled my viewpoint, or my thoughts of what they could be doing, because I know that the Lord's blessed them, and they've gone above and beyond what anything could do. I think coming back in here and recoiling relationships, it's really hard.
Yeah. Because you've changed, they've changed.
Yeah, and I feel like an outsider. I felt like an outsider a lot of times when I was there, not just based on my skin tone and the reflection in my voice and, me talking with my hands or something like that. But I come back to America, and you're sitting down and you're in a room and you're all talking about something, and your mind's somewhere else, or you don't remember it because you weren't here for it. Like I can't talk about how great somebody's wedding was because I missed out on it. And so you feel like an outsider. And then also, let's give some credit to the people who do reach out and try to talk to us because they don't know what we went through, and we don't necessarily want to talk about it. We have to process it for ourselves before we can tell others.
That's true.
And sometimes sometimes you just need to sit on the freaking couch and just zone out on TV or something, and you still have that connection. I remember one time when I came back, you just came over and you sat on the couch, and that's probably one of the best memories of us, just because we weren't talking about Africa or anything. It was just somebody was with you that had his own, backstory and history, and just knowing that there might be a little bit of a layover. I think that was really helpful.
That was really helpful for me because, like, out of all my friends, like, some of them, they might have been abroad or speak different languages, but with you, it was like, oh no, like, I know you're actively over there. Did I send you something? Did I try to send you? I think I tried to send. No, did it work?
Well, that was also one thing but you probably tried. I know that somebody I was here in the state would send me like little care packages and stuff. And the organization, I don't know if they just wanted. I didn't always get those stuff.
Yeah.
And which was really hurtful because that was a little thing that I knew that somebody in the States, loved me, cared about me, and was trying to send to me. And they would withhold that from you and say like how it was you weren't being active in the work or something.
Gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Lord be with them. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty hurtful. But I do really appreciate the people who did send stuff. There was people that I met in Oregon just like on the street literally that have been my friends ever since. And really, like I said, God just knows, right? Yeah. He just puts those people in.
Isn't there a song, God only knows what you've been through?
And I remember somebody coming over who was religious who wanted to come over and just pray with me. And it was like, I don't want to sit here with somebody. I'm always open to prayer, but I don't want to do an hour prayer right now. I want a cup of coffee to sit down and hear about other things, or maybe where my life could be going. Like, I'm back in the States. I don't know where I'm necessarily living. I don't have a job to jump back into. I can be active in the church, but how much activity can you be really active in the church? Do you know what I mean? Without having a position there. Or else you're just hanging out, like creeping around into every single classroom.
Include me.
But you have to have something to do when you come back to get you back associated. And I'm not saying like go work at McDonald's, but appreciative of the people who give you a day or two job. But
Trump worked at McDonald's, so lead by example, Not talking politics, just saying. I really feel like it was a blessing. And don't you think it was a blessing for you too?
I do. I think in hindsight, I have a lot of mixed feelings. But I think that there's so many good things that you learn. I can just thank goodness that my faith was as strong as it was, or that God made it as strong as it was to withstand those trials. But all in all, I think it was really good. I think the Lord used me the way, just according to his plan.
Yeah. You always wish the best for everyone that you came in contact with. I know that today, like 10 years forward, I do try to still speak Thai whenever I can. Sawasdee krap, from Thai, sawasdee. And I do still have really good friends that I talk to, that I made, that I worked with over there. And you can't be in contact with everyone, right? But maybe they can watch the video. I don't know. Sawasdee krap. And now, question, we both went over when we were single. Like, we both were single, we both were in our 20s, and we were doing our thing over there. My question to you is, would you recommend families to go in the mission field? Because I know that I saw a lot of the families, and I want to know what your perspective is on that. Like, did you see any families, young families, even if it was just like a husband and wife that went abroad? Or not necessarily kids, or maybe they had kids? What about?
So I think that I saw quite a few different couples with kids interact there, and I saw people who their kids were 6 to 10, completely uproot their child's life and move to a country where nobody knew the language and they weren't willing to learn, so they made themselves outsiders. That didn't make that the kids. That wasn't good for the kids. I saw people who came out with their kids being 12 to 18 or so. And I think that was probably okay because it was a family decision, but does a 12-year-old's decision weigh as much as the father's at that age? I don't know. I don't know their family dynamics. What I did see, what I absolutely loved, was a couple who were, they met in college. She joined Peace Corps. He came out to visit her a few different times. They ended up getting married. They started an organization not too far from me, and then they had kids there. Once those kids were old enough to be in a real pliable school, which, and just on a side note, how amazing for them as an expat to be able to be in the village, like, when she's nursing, think of all the moms that she can be giving nursing advice to, and all the health talks that she's having to go through, that they are going through. And she's lucky she wasn't too far from a clinic, and so there was all these great things, and it was being able to, I guess, witness where she was at in her life and be able to, and it brought the community together in ways that were just amazing, versus some person coming in and just kind of telling you, oh, I started this church and you have to come to me and I preach to you. And I loved that. And so once those kids were a little bit older to where they needed to be in 3rd, 4th grade, and they learned, they could, they were pretty bilingual. They could go through both languages, pretty simple. they decided to come back to the States.
The kids or the whole family?
The whole family.
Oh, God.
The whole family. And I think that was a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that missionary kids, I don't know, I'm not one, I've seen them, really interacted with them, and you need to be able to be amazing parents, because there's just some crazy entitlement and what have you. But if you think you can do it, it's just a lot to uproot your whole entire family. I think being single and going over there, it gave us who we could actually witness to was quite different.
Yes, 100%.
But if you have a someone special back home, and there wouldn't be any reason why they couldn't come visit you, and you could start that relationship. I mean, what's the difference between a long-term relationship? If I am dating somebody in Texas, let me tell you, they are different.
Yeah. So wait, question: now that you've been back, and then, like, have you seen or been in contact, or do you know how these kids have developed over their?
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Are they like enjoying their experience that they had over there, or do they sort of feel like they wish they didn't go, or what do you see?
I think they're still kind of young. I think that they liked it. It definitely gave them a head start on the language. I think that they're still pretty active with it, but I think it really just gave them a broader view, right? I think that it was one of the best things those kids could have done. I think that parents are amazing parents, and I think that they really did well with teaching their kids and understanding. And it's hard. I mean, it would be hard. I was at the primary school, and I was teaching, and I had a first grader, and I'm in she's the only Caucasian child in the entire school. That's really hard. And she has one Caucasian teacher. It's pretty hard having that language, but they were lucky that they did tribal language in one section. In their house they spoke English, and then outside they spoke, and so it was really great for the kid. And I think the parents were awesome, and that they really pushed all their children to do, and their children are going to be absolutely amazing. So I think that was a good thing. But it's going to be a very hard decision as a family to uproot children when children do not have the communication skills that they need to be able to explain, no, I really want to stay here with this friend. And I think uprooting children with your friends at that age is difficult.
So, like, I don't know if you know this, but my grandpa was a missionary to Hawaii before, like, back in the day, in the 50s and the 40s.
Wow.
And so it was very interesting because, I am part Hawaiian, but that's because my dad is Hawaiian ethnically, but my mom grew up there, so I get a little bit of both. But I see how, for my mom, it was a beautiful experience. For other people, when they, maybe not, Hawaii's not as international as other places, but back then you have to think it was recently a state. And I know different people throughout my life, people that are my age in their 40s, people that are in their 20s, people that are in their teens now, that they were in the mission field. And there's two different batches, I would say. The one batch is the one that were very sheltered and really stayed in that missionary.
Stayed on the compound.
Stayed on the compound. Yeah, stayed on the compound. Their parents stayed on the compound. I really see them, then they go through this rebellion stage, and then it's like they come back, they don't know, they feel like third culture kids. You can look that up too, where they feel like their passport says American, but they don't feel like they're American, or they just don't relate with a lot, and then they go through like rebellion stage. And I see even like even someone my age I know that grew up abroad, in the missionary field for all the way till he was like 12 or 13. He missed out on so much of the like vital stuff that you learn during that adolescence, like just people skills, that is completely different. So I see how he's been held back in a lot of sense until today. And then there's another group of ones where they're like fully integrated into the culture. Well, they were like not on the compounds. They never even lived on the compounds. And just to know, and let you know, the compound usually like land or area that the church owns, or and that
And then, like the missionaries live kind of like
everyone that lives on there is practically of the church or foreign. But so the other batches, the successful ones that I see that have successfully like gotten jobs abroad and that they want to go back abroad and they don't have as much third cultural kid-itis or whatever you want to call it. I don't see them as negatively affected by the experience, whether they were abroad for 1 year or 10 years. They still have a little bit of that, but they're developed adults and doing great and fully embrace it, all the experience that they have. So I would hope that if you are a family, if you're planning to go abroad and be a missionary and have that family, that you really do try to fully integrate into the culture, and don't shield your kids away in the...
Yeah, whatever the kids in the neighborhood are going out and doing, let them go out and do it. Like, I mean, as long as it's good.
Yeah,
I mean, like, I don't know what... I'm not thinking of anything bad, like, oh, we're going to chase a chicken around or something, like... Yeah. But letting them make those friends, letting them... I think is important. I agree.
It was just something that I saw, and I started seeing parallels between, like, all the kids at different ages, because like I'd see families up there with like a newborn. I'm like, wow, like I tip my hat to you, girl, because
it's very hard.
I mean, my gosh, you're dealing with the heat, you're dealing with where's the mail coming from, you're dealing with what food am I going to eat, and I gotta feed my newborn. Gosh.
And it's very difficult, you say that it's very difficult to run a house that you don't know the culture of what's acceptable and what's not, and and then how people view you because you have that, like one of the things we were almost commanded that we had to have like someone come in and help us cook, which makes sense because it takes a long time to cook, but then we're seen as not really like that, we just have money and that's what we do. And when I decided no, I'm not gonna have that opened up just a side note, because we would be sitting around this little tiny fire pit cooking beans for 3 hours, the conversations I had, we turned it into like a little devotional time, like, oh, hey, I read this on my devotion, what do you guys think of this? And opening up that conversation for the Tanzanians with me, that was probably one of the best decisions I made, but that was for me. I wasn't changing any kids' diapers or anything, but you, like I was saying kind of earlier, you have ministry wherever you go. Yeah. That's so forth. And just being conscious, but it's very difficult to run a household for 1 or 2 people or a group in a different country, because you don't know where to buy the beans. You don't know who has the best beans. you don't know whose garden's coming off with, corn or whatever it is you want to eat that night, or
would you do greens. It again?
I would go to the mission field again, but not with the same organization.
That's a beautiful answer.
If that's what comes to me.
Yeah, there you go. Add that little disclaimer in there. Yeah. It's always
would you?
Good. Oof. I feel like with my languages, I feel like it would be a good fit to go abroad. I think that I don't know necessarily if I would go through a church organization. I think I would go like and teach abroad or work abroad somehow. I definitely am open for that. Not talk about anything about politics in America at all, but I just feel like it's such a great time to go and to be. I mean, how many times were you like in situations with, like, say, people that you knew or even just strangers, and they were like, oh, you're American? Like, how many times? I'd always say I'm Californian. That was a good one. But like, how many times did you have those times when they're like, oh, you're American? Like, how we interacted with them was completely against what they'd been fed with the propaganda about our country. So even for God and country, right? So, but for even just sharing humanity, it's such a great thing, and I think I learned so much. Do I think I'm ready for another one? I don't know. Okay.
Well, I could tear that apart a little bit, because you are in a mission field. whether we get sent to 2 blocks away or thousands of miles away, we are where God wants us to be. Because if not, he could just physically move us. Like literally, it's like, here's a train, you're getting on it. Yeah. He has us there, and the moment we stop saying, well, this isn't my mission field, I'm not useful here, then we can't be a missionary.
When did you know it was time to leave? I know.
I don't know. I think that I was.
Do you think had said whatever did not happen, do you think that you would have stayed longer? Do you think that God sort of used, like sometimes God will use a bad experience in our life to get us on the right path?
Yeah, I think maybe there was a little bit of foreshadowing that he wanted me to not be with that organization anymore. And maybe I selfishly stayed with them too long, thinking that I was the one that was wrong because I'm not an organization.
But selfishly or under massive guilt trips?
Definitely.
Yeah.
When you're in a different culture, you take on a lot of things. And women in the culture that I was not highly regarded. We did not have a voice. In the same way. Yeah.
American women.
Yeah, very, very different. And so I couldn't speak up and say that I necessarily wanted to go home. I got a lot of backlash saying that I needed to take a few weeks off. I'm not glad that everything happened, but I'm glad to be back on American soil where I feel a little bit safer. Yeah. And I should have, when you see that downfall coming, you really need to
say
be
that again.
Very, very close with God, because when that downfall starts, don't ride it out. Don't ride
it. Like, we love a wave. We love to surf, but don't.
There were so many outs that God provided, and
can we talk about that?
I thought it was. I didn't know it was God. I didn't.
Right.
I was off a little bit.
My thing that I really recommend everyone to do is so there's levels, right? This is a level of how much positive impact you're having on the people and the place and around there, and then this is the level of negative beep that you got to put up with and you got to learn. So when this level, the negative beep, goes higher than your positive influence on the people and the place around you, that's when I knew it was time to go. And I've used that in every single situation that I've had since the first time I lived abroad, because otherwise it's just futile. Like if you're having less positive impact and the place is having more negative impact on you, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it to stay. So that's why I left after 5 years, because I graduated with my master's degree, and it just felt like I had done as the most I was able to do at that time.
Yeah, I think that also, I love that positiveness and the negativity that you did. We're also told not to fight amongst ourselves. And when those fights or those disagreements are so where other people are impacting, what is that going to do to my... I was a missionary, and then here I am, I'm fighting with other missionaries?
Yeah.
Or they're fighting with me? What does that do to...
Not physically fighting, per se.
Oh, yeah, not physically fighting. And not necessarily even with words. There's a lot of, passive aggressiveness. That's a great way to say it. But, I mean, you can ruin your legacy, or, and all the work that you could put in for a year or 2 or 3 or 6, it can be ruined because those people don't see eye to eye. And, when that happens, you need to really, the moment something gets like that, seek godly counsel. Go to your church. Go to your leaders. They need to intervene for you.
And have it in writing. Send an email. Yeah. Make sure you have it in writing.
But there's, I don't know. Everyone's different. Everyone has tons of different situations.
Pray.
Praying
Above all
is-
else. Above all else.
Pray.
Pray, and then
Yeah,
pray some
pray.
more. And listen.
And read. And,
Yeah, read.
That be
Devotionals,
in the Word.
Like
Be in the
Strength for
Word.
Today by Brenda Walsh. I love that devotional so much, seriously. I take it with me everywhere. Thanks so much for being on here on Breakfast with
thank
Bronsen.
you.
Our
Thanks
breakfast,
for having me.
our breakfast today is, what is this? Strawberry shortcake?
Oh, yeah. It looks like a strawberry shortcake from
Deliciousness.
Sweets was one of the things that I learned over. I don't like a lot of sweets. And this is from a bakery that doesn't use a lot of sugar because if you want to go back to the historical reasons of sugar. But that was expensive. Where I lived, it was expensive. So I felt guilty for buying sugar.
Yeah, I mean.
To this day, I don't use sugar in my coffee or tea.
Wow. Wow, I don't even drink coffee.
Oh, that's right.
Nope. All natural energy here.
Soya coffee's delicious.
Oh my gosh, we've been talking for 55 minutes.
Oh.
That is beautiful. That is so. Thank you so much, Janelle.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me get a few things off my.
I hope
my
that you are
shoulders
completely blessed, inspired to go out there and be a missionary, or don't, or go out there and out your door and be a missionary.
Mm-hmm.
And we all mess up, you know. We all mess up, but try your very, very best. And I really just pray that whoever's watching this is going to be inspired and learn from things that we wish we could have done better, and that you'll continue to make a positive impact and share God with everyone that you meet, and that you'll learn a lot too.
And that means everywhere. When you get on the airplane to go, like there's someone sitting right next to you that's as scared. Like,
how many best friends have you made on the airplane? I have made. Hey, shout out to Nancy. Hey, met her going to Paris. Love her. How many friends have you made? Like, I mean, I've made so many friends on traveling because you're really just on the train. Oh, I miss so many. I'm just thinking of all of them right now. Anyways, and yeah. I don't know. Should we let them go now?
Yeah, we'll let
anything,
you go.
anything
Feel free
else?
to write and ask any questions or for
Comment.
follow-up because sometimes I don't communicate the full sentence properly. But feel free just to write us and ask us and we'll do deep dives with you anytime.
You know what I would wish?
Or if you just want prayer.
Yeah,
why don't you just call and...
Should we pray for them right now? Do you want to pray for them?
Go for it.
We both will pray.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll start. She'll close. Like, let's bow our heads for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I thank you so much for Janelle. Thank you so much for the person that's watching this video. Help them to feel blessed. Help them to feel your holy presence. If they're thinking about going on a mission field or just being a missionary or just sharing you, God, I encourage them to just stay close to you, God, no matter what craziness happens. Help them to always look back to you. Be with all the people that were on my missionary experience and Janelle's missionary experience and just all the time in the future, and bring us closer and closer to you, God, to that one day where you come again. In your holy precious name, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.